Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Recovery Talk. In this week's episode, I'm joined by fellow Let's Recover coach Louisa, who is currently taking on new clients, by the way. Head over to the website if you're interested, letsrecover.co.uk. And in this conversation, we are going to share our own lived experience with eating disorder recovery and body image healing. And we are going to talk about how we feel about body image as people who have recovered from eating disorders. And we're going to talk a bit about what is a normal level of body image distress. And also we'll talk a bit about, do we still feel that? And as always in this podcast, there will also be some more practical things and insights, tips that you can implement yourself in your recovery. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy this conversation. It's pretty honest. But I also hope that it can be helpful and maybe hopeful as well, and show you that not hating your body every single second of your day, not obsessing about your body all the time, it's a real possibility. Let's get into it. Hi, Louisa. Thank you for joining. Do you want to start, just quickly introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Louisa. I'm a eating disorder recovery coach on Amalia's team with Let's Recover. I had an eating disorder myself for the majority of my life. I developed it in my early teen years and recovered like basically around 30 when I was 30 years old. I now live in California with my husband and my son, and yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's start a bit with body image. And me and Louisa actually had a very interesting conversation the other day about body image and what degree of bad body image is actually just a normal part of being human, and what degree is disordered. Is it normal to have bad body image days? And one of the things we kind of concluded with is that having bad body image days can be the reality for some, but sometimes being fully recovered means that the days become moments instead. So having, for example, a morning where you wake up and you're not feeling your best doesn't necessarily derail your whole day.
Yeah, I think this is the because I was like, yeah, I don't never have a bad body image moment or a situation. There's definitely moments in my life where I think about it, but I think the big difference for me as well is that it's more an observation than judging. And then I recognize that my thoughts are going in that direction, like kind of more observing my body, and then it's more realizing what else is going on in my life right now. And it could be different reasons. Sometimes it doesn't have a reason at all, and that's okay. And then usually it just passes very quickly as well with continuing my life and just like taking care of myself. Mostly it's about self-care for me when I realize I slip a little bit in that direction, and just checking in and seeing like, do I need a snack right now? Do I like need to drink some water? Do I like, just like need to sit and just chill for a second? And yeah, I think the big difference is that it doesn't take over behavior and my day. Like I realized in recovery, and I realize over and over again with my clients who go through recovery, is that when habits disappear, it's less obvious than when we kind of add on new habits, if that makes sense. When things like body checking or etc. like disappear, it's just something, like you don't necessarily realize if you continue because you're busy in your life. And then at one point when you talk about it, you're like, yeah, that's right, I'm not really doing this anymore. This was a realization we had.
That's a good point. Oftentimes you take some of the wins of recovery for granted because you don't fully realize. And then it's more when you take a moment to reflect and then you're like, whoa, I don't do that anymore. And I think that's an important reminder, because a lot of times I work with people who have done some good work in recovery, but they're not fully there yet. And then they feel really stuck. And then kind of have to remind them a bit like, yeah, of course, you don't want to settle, but also celebrate a little bit how far you come. Notice that, oh yeah, that thing that you used to do 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or however long it was, you don't really do that thing anymore. You don't really think that thing anymore. Or even if you feel certain things, maybe the intensity level has gone down. And it seems a bit what you Louisa described was that it's not that you never have bad body image, but it's more that the intensity of it has gone down, that the volume has gone down, and that you're quicker to snap out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the main part is that I don't act because of it. Like it's just something I just realize and, like just kind of look into it. Or, I mean, I'm not gonna not over interpret things, but I'm just like seeing like, hey, what's going on when I realize it. And sometimes I don't necessarily realize in that moment. But yeah, I think this is just more on the sideline. It's not a wake up and it will kind of affect my day. And I think just for the body image part, because I mean this is just something going through pregnancy and postpartum and breastfeeding and all of those things. It's just definitely does a lot to your body and changes your body a lot, because I mean obviously with pregnancy, but also something I really underestimated as well is like the whole postpartum journey, because your hormones are just basically fluctuating all the time. And then when you stop nursing at one point, you're constantly just like in a hormonal storm. And I think this is the biggest, like not pregnancy necessarily. There, it was extremely helpful to like be recovered as well, but like postpartum and just like let go and let your body do what it needed to do and just, kind of sit and observe more than judge.
That's a good point. And I think that would actually be something good for a future episode as well, like going through pregnancy and the postpartum period when you are in recovery, or even when you have been recovered. Like, how is that like? Because I think there is a bit of a misconception that eating disorders, they just disappear when you're pregnant, or that they just disappeared once you've had the baby. Then it's like, oh yeah, then you're going to be so distracted, you're not going to have any eating disorder thoughts and feelings. And is that not actually true? We know that pregnancy and the postpartum period and breastfeeding, there actually can be major triggers for some people. And I think it's not spoken enough about. So, I mean, maybe stay tuned. Maybe we'll have an episode about it sometime. When me and Louisa were talking about this, I actually had to pause for a moment because I was realizing, like, I don't think I have bad body image days. And I was thinking, well, am I in denial? And also part of me was thinking, should I even share that? Because I feel like can make me a bit unrelatable. And I don't want people to strive for what may not for them be realistic expectations of recovery. I don't want anyone to feel like they're failing recovery if they have bad body image days or if that still is a struggle. But I realized that for me, it's not really something that I'm too bothered about. And this is not because I have just rised above any societal pressures and I just don't care and I'm just so evolved. Trust me, no, I have plenty of insecurities. I just realized that my body is typically not what I'm beating myself up for. I'm beating myself up for everything else, so don't worry. But my body is just typically not my punching bag anymore. And I don't quite know why. And I actually spent some time really reflecting on why, because I was thinking, like, shouldn't I? Like, because I feel like it's a very normal for anyone, but perhaps especially for women, where it's almost a societally acceptable form of small talk in a group of women to talk down about your body. And I kind of concluded that I don't really know exactly why I'm not as affected by bad body image. Maybe it's a bit because I am not spending that much time in some social environments. Maybe it has to do a bit with who I'm around. I'm typically not around people where it's a big insecurity. And typically, the only time I hear about that kind of very negative body talk would be in a work context where it's very obviously pathological and unhealthy. So I think my brain associates that with something that's like work in a way. I do have thin privilege. I do have a body that is considered acceptable by societal standards. But I also know that there are a lot of people who also have bodies like mine who are very insecure about it. I think to me, I see my body very neutrally. To me, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, that's just a completely normal looking body. Like, why would I be insecure about something that is just so unremarkable? Like, if I was on the beach, there'll be so many bodies that are like looking like mine. For me, it's like, it just doesn't quite in my brain make sense to be insecure about something that's so normal and unremarkable in a way. But I also think that is also why some people have body insecurities, because they have a expectation of their bodies needing to be remarkable, because the bodies we're being presented with are remarkable, in part because they're not real, right? Those bodies are photoshopped, people have surgeries. And each to their own. I'm not necessarily saying that's inherently like a wrong thing to do. I'm not going to go here and preach, but the bodies we're being exposed to aren't necessarily actually how those people look like. And maybe that is also a bit why I'm not as badly affected by things like negative body image. I spend very little time in those online spaces. So I think I just get very little of those exposures in around me, whether it's from people I'm around, the media I consume. And when I get it in, it's typically in a work context from someone who obviously has a problem. So then I'm thinking, yeah, I see it more that way. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I was just kind of thinking and smiling because I was like, I kind of live in the hotspot of people caring about how they look. Like I live in Los Angeles and I'm definitely not part of this society. And I spend most of my time in like just sweatpants on the playground. Like nothing I surround myself with, but you're naturally exposed to. Like if you go down to the beach, for example, there are a lot of people just like doing like tons of selfies, like flexing on the beach. Like the big shift I think that happened over the years is that it's not necessarily being thin, it's more being fit. Yeah, so this is definitely something that, like the more where your attention goes, energy flows. Like if you kind of look at a lot of social media posts with bodies, your brain will think like, oh, this is something we need to concentrate on. This is something we like need to focus on. It totally makes sense. Like if you say like, yeah, I really don't, I'm not surrounding myself with this. I basically like changed my social media input a lot. And like, it's nothing with like bodies and like, like those kind of influencers. So it helps for sure. And I think this is just something to realize as well. Like, what are we doing to like help our body image thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I had more body image insecurities before when I spent more time on social media. Even though it was not necessarily something I acted on, I think I felt it a bit more because that was what I was being exposed to. So I think that is a big thing. And I think people often think like, oh yeah, and like, no, I'm above that. I can see as much of that social media content and it's not going to influence me. But like you said, where attention goes, energy flows, there is a lot to that. I also wonder if it has to do with the fact that I have not been through that many like major body changes. For example, I don't have any children. I would love to have children one day, but I'm not gone through pregnancy. I was one of those people who recovered and then there was not like a drastic up and down in weight. I've just been relatively stable. I'm sure I've fluctuated, but I don't even think I've necessarily noticed it that much. But it hasn't been any drastic changes one direction or another. So I think my brain has gotten very used to how my body looks like. And I think this is an important thing with body image. A lot of times what you're feeling is discomfort with the change. I see this all the time. People feel the worst when their body is changing. And then once it's stabilized, even if it is at a weight that maybe was higher than what it was, in recovery when they're still in a changing process, people often feel better because the brain eventually gets used to it. So I think this is a very like underestimated part of body image is that thing of your brain getting used to things and why people often feel so bad when they're in recovery because they're like, it's uncertainty, it's changing. You don't know where you're going to end up, right?
Yeah, such a good point because this is like, we're kind of habitual animals. We love a stable, like nothing changing, nothing big changes. Basic changes in the past, like caveman brain changes mean we have to change because of danger. I think this is also, like I don't want to go too detailed into the pregnancy story, but you do get weighed like a bunch during pregnancy and like you can always ask for blind weighing, but it is, especially in America, you just get your visit summary and your weight and BMI is just in bold letters, like on the top right corner. It's just something you're exposed to a lot. And then also, like, especially the postpartum, this is like a huge market of like getting your pre-baby body back and like those kind of things. So there's a lot of talk and focus on your body when you go through pregnancy. It's not like, wow, amazing, you're growing a human being. It's more like, how do you look in pregnancy? Like, are you active? Are you like, how quickly do you bounce back? And yeah, there's a lot more exposure, more talk around body during that time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I really prepare for the fact that my body image, even though it's been pretty like neutral and stable, and may I even say good, like I don't mind looking at myself with no clothes on. I think I look fine. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind that at all. It ranges neutral to positive, my relationship to how my body looks like. But I'm very open to the fact that that might shift when I go through things like pregnancy or even other stages in life where body may change, or even stages in life where there is in general more diet culture pressure. Like, for example, perimenopause, menopause, suddenly there's so much chatter. So I'm really prepared that that may happen. And I think that if that happens, I won't see that as a failure. If it starts taking over, yes, of course, that's a red flag. If it becomes very intense, hard to manage. But I also think that there's so many different experiences of how someone relates to their own body as a recovered person. And plenty of people who've never had eating disorders are going to have fluctuating body image. So I also don't want to make it seem like we're putting people who've recovered to higher standards than we do people without eating disorders, because I don't think that's fair either. And again, I want to say that I don't think my experience is what is everyone's experience or even most people's experience. I think I have a few factors relating to my environment, relating perhaps also to my eating disorder. I didn't find weight gain super hard in recovery. I feel like more when I see working with people now, I find that the average person tends to find weight changes and weight restoration harder than what I did. I found other things in recovery very hard, but that was not the most difficult part for me. It was not my biggest fear or anything. So maybe that's a bit why. Also think my individual just personality type, temperament, maybe also, I don't quite know. But yeah, I'm ungrateful for it. But I was a little bit unsure if I should say it, because I also think that if you say, I like the way my body looks, or even just saying that I don't mind how it looks like, that can sometimes come across a little bit the wrong way, as like you're being a bit overconfident. Even though I have a body that is like considered normal by society and I don't experience things like weight discrimination, my body doesn't have no quote unquote imperfections according to society. I have plenty of things that I think other people would be insecure about if it was on their bodies, but I just don't really care that much. I think, I don't know, I just feel like my life is full of so much more. And again, I have so many other good things to be insecure about. Why go for my completely normal looking body? Like so many other things I can beat myself for.
And I think this is like, it's such an important point because very often we judge our bodies on like the way they look. When like when my bad body image moments kind of flare up, that I just realize what my body does for me every day. And it always sounds like so theoretic, just so easy to do. But like, if I think about like, hey, it gets me through the day. It's getting me from A to B. Like I'm walking my child to school. It's like 5-minute walk, but still like we're doing it and just getting him in his clothes in the morning and shoes and like those kind of things. And I always call it zooming out. It's just like kind of taking a look from further away and just like looking at the whole picture and just like seeing like it's not, our bodies are not the problem. One other quick thing that popped in my head, what you said earlier with premenopause, menopause, like people who menstruate every month, even if you don't have like strong PMS, that it still can affect your body image a lot. And this is just something I realized too, like I don't feel great about myself like right before my period. Like I feel like sluggish and like I hold water and I just want to cuddle up on the couch. But it's okay to feel like that too. We don't have to always feel great. And it's unfortunate that it's once a month, but it's okay too.
I think to conclude, what we can say is that keep a bit of an eye out on your environment. So, like we've spoken about, there are some environments that are, more diety, but it also is important to build a certain level of resilience towards that. And I want to hear a bit about your experience, Louisa, with handling those conversations. Because I remember myself during my eating disorder, I felt like I was quite on guard. Whenever there was a conversation around things like food or even things like body, or if someone was around me said that they wanted to lose weight, I would get very activated and very bothered and upset by it. I don't know, it's like some kind of like instinctual alarm reaction went off in me. Whilst now I'm kind of like, whatever. Like there's so much else to talk about, right? I want to hear a bit what your thoughts are. If you, for example, are in a group of people where maybe people are talking about that, do you find that to be challenging or?
I have a similar experience like you have, where I don't really engage anymore, and I'm not interested. Of course, if a friend comes to me and shares his or her struggle with it, like I'll listen, but I will also tell them that I will not engage in them and like kind of comment on their body. Like I will not tell them, no, you look great. I'm there as a friend, but like this is definitely something I realized for myself, like it's healthy for me to like not engage anymore and go down like a potentially like a diet talk or something, and just going there. And if somebody comes to me and tells me about their diet plans and like their new workouts to change their bodies, I had the exact same, like I used to jump on that and just like wanting to know everything about it, every detail, and just like considering it from me saying like, do I need to do this now? I should be trying this. And now it's kind of boring. Something I don't want to engage in anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly the same. It's just that it doesn't activate me in the same way that it used to. And also, in a way, it doesn't concern me in the same way it used to. Like, this sounds really weird because obviously, if someone around me were to really struggle, that would, of course, be very concerning. But I remember during my eating disorder, even like very innocent things would set me off. So, for example, if I had a family member that didn't eat their breakfast, I would be like, why are you not eating your breakfast? It's almost like an instinctual thing of making sure the people around me were fed, because I think my brain was it's such a famine mode that it was thinking that everyone else around me was starving. And I think I was projecting a lot. I was projecting my own eating disorder onto other people who may not have had an eating disorder themselves, but I saw eating disorders everywhere. And I also realized that I noticed certain behaviors a lot more than I do now. I remember feeling like I saw super thin people everywhere. Now, if you ask me, like, what kind of bodies did you see when you were out today? I'll be like, I have no clue. See, my brain don't register it anymore because my brain just filters the world very differently. Because this is the thing, you always filter the world through who you are rather than as the world is.
Yeah, I I definitely recognize the same, where I feel like if some like also within my friends or like people I know and I see frequently, if somebody's body changes, just something I just pay way less attention to. If we go to the beach in the summer, the beach visit is about having fun on the beach and like going swimming together and playing in the sand. And it's not about like who's wearing what kind of bathing suit and how is it showing their bodies and how is the body looking. So it's just attention shifted.
Yeah, attention shifting. It's a huge relief because it's not nice feeling being so on guard all the time.
No, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting because our brains like love to compare. The rewiring part is so crucial. People often ask me like, okay, what do I do about my body image? Like how can we work on my body image? And yes, there are certain things we can work on, but also like trusting that this will improve so much with just the general rewiring process, and kind of quieting the eating disorder voice will also quietening the body image voice, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. Body image is one of those things that, yes, of course, like you said, there are certain tools and strategies you can do. A lot of times it also is about what not to do, such as don't spend time body checking, don't spend time in certain social media spaces, don't try on those clothes you know should not fit you. But a lot of times it is about time, getting your brain more used to a new body, giving yourself some time to build a life and identity outside of the eating disorder so that body doesn't become so much of a focus. The people that I know that have the best body image are not the people who are just telling themselves so many affirmations. They're often the people who just have such full lives outside of how they look like, how their bodies look like, that it becomes kind of like a side note, like it's not that big of a deal anymore. I think the most important part of body image work is actually creating a life outside of your body and creating something outside of that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And I think just realizing that certain body shifts are also like literally our body's attempt to keep us alive. They're very often for a reason and not because our body tries to be mean to us.
Very important point. And I think this is also something that can help give yourself some grace. Like you mentioned, for example, if you have menstrual cycles, yeah, you're going to hold more water, maybe not feel your best. Your emotions are going to be a bit different. And actually just being like, yeah, that's a normal, natural function of my body. Or going through things like pregnancy and body changes, it is by design. It's supposed to be that way. Your body is not rebelling against you. It's doing what it's meant to do. And I think trust is kind of like a key word of how I feel about my body and kind of about my recovery now and what is to me so different from how it used to be. Because it can be quite hard to feel okay when you don't trust your body. For example, something like intuitive eating. Like, how can you feel okay with that when you don't know yet? You don't know how it feels like to have that trusting, calm relationship. You don't know if your hunger fullness cues are reliable yet. You haven't had enough time under your belt to really get that experience that, oh yeah, I can trust my body. I sometimes compare it a bit to trusting another human being. So if I come up to you and say, hey, I'm trustworthy, you're not going to trust me. It's going to take some time to build that trust. You build it by time and enough experience of realizing that, oh yeah, Amali can be trusted. And then you get the trust. And this is what makes recovery so difficult, because then you don't have that experience yet. You're being told that you're not going to keep gaining weight until infinity and beyond, then you're broken and it doesn't stop and na. But you don't know yet. You haven't tried. And this can be very hard because someone had been through an eating disorder. They may have experienced that their hunger has felt quite unreliable. They may have experienced that they do increase in weight very quickly when they eat more, because normal reaction to starvation. And then they take that as a sign that their body is untrustworthy, when that actually is like normal temporary changes. It takes time to build trust in yourself and in your recovery. And time, I think, is the best thing, but you can't speed time. So if you're feeling like, oh, I don't know, I'm not feeling quite trusting of my body, I'm kind of feeling doubt, that's normal. That's okay. Give it time. And that's when you start feeling that confident in your recovery. Something really shifts with time.
Yeah, such a good point. I think this is like, and I don't know if I like this term or not, but I feel like it's applicable here. It's like this fake it until you make it. You have to teach your brain that it's okay and it's going to be okay, and that it will get to a point where things get easier, even though it doesn't feel like that right now at all.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it. Think about one thing I often tell my clients is, how would a version of you that felt okay with your body act? And can you act more like that version of you? This does not mean that you can't like ask for support if you're feeling low, or that like you can't do those things. I'm not advocating for suppressing every emotion or anything like that. But things like, okay, would a version of you that feel okay with your body go out to see friends tonight or go on that date? Because I see so many times that people, they limit themselves due to their body. And then they sit at home thinking, when I start feeling better about my body, I will start living my life. What makes you feel better about your body is living your life. And they sit there and wait, and then nothing happens. And they're like, oh my God, recovery is not for me, and go back. So it's so important in those moments to do a bit of fake it till you make it. A bit of, okay, yeah, I don't feel great about my body, but I'm still going to go and say yes to that date tonight, for example. Like, still do things as much as you can. And by doing, you then eventually start feeling better about yourself.
Yeah, and I think this is focusing on your body again. Like this is basically your brain just thinking like, oh man, this body is like really, really important how we look. And it's just engraving this like belief system that is already in place. So whenever you go out and say like, you know what, I'm just gonna go out, I'm gonna put on some like comfy clothes. I don't need to like wear a tank top right now. Like I'm just gonna wear something I feel comfortable in and go to the social event, go to whatever it is. It helps teaching your brain that the body is not the main focus.
Yeah, because how can your brain get the memo that how your body looks is not that important if you're acting the complete opposite way? Because when you are barricading yourself inside, hiding your body, declining every social event because how you don't like how you feel about your body, your brain is like, oh wow, this body thing, super important stuff apparently. So really think about that. Of course, you don't need to do things that make you feel super uncomfortable. Like you, Louisa, made a point that, yeah, it's okay to go out and maybe don't wear the small tank top that you know are going to keep you hyper focused on your stomach the whole night. So there's a limit to the fake it till you make it. You don't want to make it unnecessarily triggering for yourself, but try and be very careful with putting your life on hold until you feel better about your body, because chances are you'll feel better about your body when you stop putting your life on hold.
Yeah, exactly. Such a good point.
All right, Louisa. So I want to ask you, so you're someone who has worked on improving your own body image and you also help other people improving theirs. I would love to hear a bit. What do you feel is the most important thing that you have done for yourself in that healing process? And also, what are perhaps some even like practical things that you recommend to clients?
As I said before, like doing like specific body image exercises, I'm generally not a big fan of because it draws your attention back to body image. What helped me the most and what I also recommend clients I work with is to basically distract and redirect when your brain goes into body checking. So basically really trying to focus on like reducing body checking as much as possible. And we didn't really like talk about body checking. I know Amalia has an amazing podcast about body checking itself, like where she talks about all the different types of body checking and how it can look like, because they can look like so different for everybody and so innocent looking. It's mostly about, it's the obvious one where you literally stand in front of a mirror, like pinch yourself, take selfies. But there's also like, it's so important to focus on the small innocent ones and just really trying to like redirect your brain, your behavior in that moment. And this can look so many different ways, and it's a habit. It's something we just automatically do, and we often don't even realize it. So just like kind of building new habits, like starting slow, starting small steps, just thinking like, how can I make it maybe harder to body check in the morning? Like, how can I add another step so my brain doesn't go in the habit immediately? And this could look like, like if you're able to like turn your mirror around, put something over your mirror, like just cover it with like a big coat or blanket or something. Like I've had clients who like took lipstick and the cleaning up is not fun, but it helps in the moment and it's worth it. But just like write stuff on it, like write little message, like little affirmation if it's helpful for you. And everybody works differently here, but just like basically distracting from doing the behavior and just like kind of working on teaching your brain that is not an important topic anymore.
That is something I also do with clients a lot, is the body checking aspect, like figuring out like how you practically tend to body check. Because so many times it happens in the very sneaky, subtle ways. And yeah, I did a podcast episode about this not too long ago about body checking behaviors, where I talk about maybe some more sneaky ways it can show up. So that is something I do as well a lot with clients. Another thing that I often do myself with clients is asking them to pay attention to when they feel the best and worst about their bodies, or even when they feel the most neutral about their bodies, when body is just not really something they're very focused on. Because what very often happens is that there becomes this very clear pattern that the body, like I said, becomes a punching bag. When someone feel like, oh, I got a bad grade, or I had a fight with my partner, then suddenly the body becomes, oh, suddenly my body is wrong. It's like, it's not about your body. It is not about your body if it fluctuates so much.
Yeah.
So this is another thing. And also seeing a bit like, when do you feel the best about your body? Again, a typical pattern is that people feel the best about their bodies when they're doing things they're really passionate about that has nothing to do with their bodies.
Yeah.
So this for me is another thing that I work on a lot with clients. And it can sometimes seem a bit confusing to people because it's like, well, you're a recovery coach and here we're talking about job applications, right? Like what was going on here? But I find such a consistent pattern that I see with clients is that people do better when they have other things in their life than their eating disorder, and even also recovery. Of course, you can't let go of recovery before it's time to let go of recovery, but starting to like make your life bigger and implement more things, even if it's like a small little thing you're doing, even if it's just picking up a new hobby, calling a friend, having other things, and building an identity that is more flexible and that is not just about your suffering as well. So important.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's like the redirecting and just like kind of distracting and finding more fun things than checking your body. Like if you're just, like distracting yourself in that moment, like that can look so many different ways. It can be as simple, like I'm going to turn around and walk away from the mirror, like I'm just going to call my best friend. Or, like it can be just, like it can be taking on a new hobby, for example, like just doing something in that moment, but actively like moving away from body checking is key. Like when you walk along a street and you see the reflection of yourself in a car or in like a shopping window or something, just kind of distracting that mode. Yeah. And like one other thought or one other tool we use in coaching a lot is like, just because our brains we love to kind of focus on one body part or like certain body parts we're unsatisfied with. And that can be a total different one for everybody. But just like also teaching your brain to pay attention to your entire body and like each body part the same way without judging one more than the other. So like when you end up looking in the mirror, you can also, and this is also again like a thin line, like don't overdo it because your brain thinks like, okay, we're focusing on it again, but just like doing it once every other day or something, like kind of standing in front of the mirror and just saying like, I'm going to let my eyes wander and don't stop at one body part. Like I give my ankles the same attention as I give my belly and my ears and, like, and try to go through this without judging and without stopping, like kind of forcing your way through this. And it can be like a 10-second thing where you just do it and move away from the mirror. But yeah, I think this is just something we don't recognize enough, that we do tend to like just kind of, when we look in the mirror, our eyes go immediately to those body parts we tend to judge, and like rewiring your brain towards like, no, each body part is like equally important for us.
Yeah, when your body image is very distorted and when you maybe have some degree of body dysmorphia, you don't see your body as like the full picture, which is what it is. You see it like you hone in on separate parts and you genuinely distort how you view those parts. Reminds me a lot of my own experience, where I did acknowledge that I'm probably quite small, but if you handed me a clothing in a specific clothing size, I'd be like, no, that's way too small for me. And then I would try it on and it would be too big. For example, I would look at a friend and I would think, we're roughly the same size. And then I would try on a piece of clothing that I wanted to borrow from them. And I'm like, why is this one way too big on me? It's interesting. The brain generally distorts. Don't believe everything you think, especially not if how you think about your body is so distorted that it is mental illness. Like, take it with a big grain of salt. Maybe just accept that, okay, maybe I can't quite trust myself on this part. So I'm not even going to try, right? I'm just going to be like, yeah, it's going to be a bit distorted and that's okay. And try and see yourself and remember that you are a full person. Right, Louisa, thank you so much for coming on. And me and Louisa, we're doing a little series. We have a few other topics to talk about as well. We're going to talk a bit about food and how eating is like for a recovered person. We're going to talk about exercise and movement, how that is like as well when someone is recovered. And also just talk a bit more in general about why recovery is so worth it. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun, as always.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as mentioned, Louisa is opening her books to take on new clients. So if you are interested in working with a very skilled and very action-oriented and very easy to get along with coach that makes you feel quite at ease yourself, Louisa is your gal. For coaching, whether that be with Louisa or with me, head over to letsrecover.co.uk. Link is also in the episode description. I hope you enjoyed this episode and this podcast in general. If you do, please do leave a rating, share with a friend, and make sure that you follow the podcast as well so that you will get notified when I post new episodes, typically every second week. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode.